Hello, welcome to The Back Podcast, Australia's favourite gaming podcast, as voted on by us, the hosts of The Back Podcast, Australia's favourite gaming podcast. It's Monday, the 11th of July, 2022. I am Nick Richardson, and today I am joined by fellow salmon boys, Peter, Jeffrey, Bruce Burns.
They're stolen. Hijacked middle names.
And Reeps, middle name, Reeps.
Yes, just Reeps. It's my full name. And yes, I guess this is coming across as salmon. Well, salmonish, maroon, perhaps. I don't know. You be the judge.
Yeah, it's more like there's just a nice fill in your space of this kind of tone as well.
Yeah, that's true. I would say for podcast listeners, we're all basically we're in the same color. Reeps is living a maroon purple life over here.
Yes,
I'm living
clay,
salmon, terracotta, clay. Yeah, maybe clay terracotta, and then Pete's doing more pink salmon.
Yep.
Yeah,
Fresh.
I think it was
fresh out of the stream.
To clarify.
Yeah, evolution.
You're wearing John West tinned salmon. Tuna, sorry. Yeah, no, salmon. But maybe it's been open for like 3 hours.
Yeah. Little tinge.
Reeps has been open for a week.
Yeah.
You should not eat this salmon. I'm saying. Yeah.
Reeps has gone off. I'm so glad that we chose to spend a lot of time having this discussion. Unfortunately, there does need to be another hour and a half of discussion, which won't be too good on my voice at the moment. I'm a little bit of a croaky boy, so apologies for everyone listening who is turned off by what's happening here right now.
But welcome to everyone who's turned on.
100%. And Soccer Killer 50 is the first one that I just see in chat, who, even though he seems to be excited for Reeps, I'm sure was like, excited for Reeps, bonus, some sort of gravelly man is here too.
You got that great voice, though. Like, it's such a presenter voice. I love it.
Thank you very much. Kid kind of just get that man some lemon honey tea. It's what I have right here, so thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. But excited to have you back, Reeps.
Thank you.
Been too long. Between having you here and then having you here again. Really, I wish you were just a part of the team all the time. But I was about to say we can't afford it financially. We can. We're rolling in cash. We just can't afford it morally to have another white man join the team. We just can't do it.
It's a wise move, honestly. I don't know how much I'll bring to the team apart from not fully fulfilling my salmon duties, but judging others who may come in and not wear salmon. So I could give you that free. That's for free.
And what have
salmon
you been up to
duties.
since
It's a fun string of words.
Yeah, that's the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
What have you been up to since last we spoke on camera?
Oh, honestly, just more streaming. It may frighten some people or shock them that I've continued streaming, but that's basically it. I did a big old subathon about 2 weeks back. I went for 51 hours in a row. It was crazy. I did sleep, never fear. Always look out after your own personal health more than anything. But honestly, just doing things, trying new games. Now that Fall Guys is cross-platform, it's great. Because now it's like, I know what I'm going to play today. I can do custom lobbies and play with viewers. So it's been really nice in that regard. And I'm thinking of maybe seeing Thor very, very soon. I've heard differing opinions, but that's kind of what's on my plate.
How soon are we talking? You're going to finish the podcast, right?
Yeah.
What's the time at the moment? I'll give it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Technically, the showing started at 10:30, but there's an hour and a half worth of commercials and trailers beforehand, so he could just walk in at midday and he'll be fine.
We'll keep on walking. Yeah.
Pete, have you seen Thor yet?
I haven't seen Thor yet, no.
Oh, okay, right. I haven't seen Thor yet either. That's not so much a surprise. Though I did go to the movies on the weekend. Let me tell you, I did go to the movies on the weekend.
Tell me.
Oh, my goodness. I've been to the movies twice this year. How exciting for me. When I saw Minions. Yeah, I know, totally. When I saw Minions. And this will be so boring to everyone who is like under the age of 35 and probably boring to you too as well.
I'm 32, so I'll be right on the cusp.
That's true. Kids' movies are so fucking violent, and it is so apparent when you've got your kids sitting there, and like that movie is all about adults saying that they want to kill a child, and it is so violent. And so the whole time my partner and I were just sitting there with our kids going, I cannot believe that this is a fucking kids movie right now. Like, what happened to kids movies that disturbed you but weren't like, but they were like lessons, whereas this is like,
what did you learn from Ren and Stimpy?
I didn't watch Ren and Stimpy when I was 5. Anyway. It's fucked. So anyway, I should have taken them to Top Gun is the lesson. But very excited to have you here, Reeps.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We should get onto this because there's quite a bit to cover this episode. And Pete, the news, it's not going to break it. The Backup is presented by one of our top stage patrons and the best evil person we know. Anyone who spoils the Kyrios result in the chat. I didn't watch it. I watched the F1, which was also a poor decision when I was sick, but we're trying to stay pure to watch it tonight. So if anyone spoils it, I hate you, I'll ban you, I'll find you, I'll reverse dox you.
I'll unban you. Because I want to know.
Okay,
let me know in the chat.
No,
T's, no.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, Evil Spy Boy. Get your exclamation mark Spy Boys out in the chat because thanks for his generous Patreon support. Evil Spy Boy is bringing you the backup, and he's hoping you bring the generosity to Food Bank Australia. Food Bank provides regular breakfast for more than 132,000 students across the country. And on top of this, more than 200,000 kids seek food relief from their charities every single month. Head to foodbank.org.au. There's a link in Nightbot right now, and head to tasteofmultifish.com for more information about Evil Spy Boy's proclivities. All right, let's back it up and look at the biggest stories of the week as voted on by us, the host of The Backup, where we back up and look at the biggest stories in the week. Reeps, you please start us off with a story that made you back up and say, hey, that's a pretty big story.
Yeah, well, for me, this is a big story. Others may not find it as big, but I do love hearing about these things when it comes to the world of gaming. So as we know, Elden Ring is probably going to get all the awards this year. It's probably going to get Game of the Year and everything like that. And there is a particular user who you can see on the screen right now by the name of Let Me Solo Her, who basically spawns in on this one particular boss. So it's Melina. I've never played the game myself, but apparently she's a very difficult boss. And he's beaten her single-handedly with his dual katanas over 1,000 to 2,000 times. And because of this, Bando Namkai has sent him, I believe, dual-wielding swords to say thank you so much for being an amazing lore in this game that is Elden Ring. We want to reward you for killing this particular boss. Let Me Solo Her, hence their name. And so we're going to give you this as a reward. And now he's gone down in, I guess, I wouldn't say infamy, but like he's now famous in the Elden Ring community for just simply taking on this one boss over and over again and yelling into his voice comms, hey, let me solo her. So I had to put that as my number one choice for the game.
Yeah, so this guy, so Millennia is one of the more interesting and challenging and beautiful bosses of Elden Ring, and definitely like a controller down point for plenty of people. Yeah. It's one of the more challenging fights because a lot of fights you feel like you're making progress incrementally and you know that you're working towards beating this boss, but this one has like a lifesteal, and so even if you get close to killing it, a couple of mistakes can be so costly, so you just cannot make mistakes. And what I Can Solo Her, Let Me Solo Her they've made a character called Let Me Solo Her, so when you summon, and Reeps, if you haven't played, there's you can summon other players into your world to help you with scenarios and encounters. And so there'd be a sign on the ground that people walk up to, and it would come up with a profile picture of this character, so nude with a pot on his head, and it just says, let me solo her. And so you're like, yeah, all right. Summon them in. By summoning in allies, the enemies get more health as well. So when Let Me Solo Her is doing the boss for another player, they're doing like I think 2 times the amount of health if there's a harder version of the solo fight. And they're just so proficient at this fight. Just keep going through it. There have been raps written about this person. People have made figurines of this person. It's such a wonderful little story that Souls often has something like this, but not this magnitude. And it's typically like an in-game character that kind of gets a lot of
like patches
fanfare.
Or something.
Patches for sure. Praise the Sun guy, Solaire. But you know, Let Me Solo Her. I'm sure if it will be recognized in Souls games going ahead.
I would be shocked. I would be shocked if there's not a character that looks like this in the next Souls game that comes out.
Yep,
like some NPC somewhere as a reference. Yeah, it's a great story because I think it's emblematic of one of the great things about the Souls community. There's a lot of gatekeeping bullshit that can happen around the games that's totally unnecessary and weird and just boring. But I think that a great thing about it is when the community comes together to help and educate and inspire each other. And for this guy to just be sitting there ready to go, helping out literally thousands of people. And then there's been other people have taken the mantle and made like Let Me Solo Hers, and they've become proficient at other bosses inspired by him so that they hang out at other bosses. There's just this whole, it's like the best part of gaming. It is the thing where you go, this is why community is really good when it springs up around a game. This is something that's really special. And I do think it's really cool that they've sort of acknowledged this in a way, because for a lot of people outside of if they didn't play Elden Ring, like yourself, Reeps, you didn't play it, but you know about this. And so that it's like the guy has done some incredible marketing to people who otherwise would never have been interested in this game in the first place.
Yeah, he's kind of like, if you look at his kind of design that he's done on himself, he's kind of like the reverse Getting Over It, with Bennett Foddy.
Yep.
And he's not getting over it, he's getting through it each, 1,000 times over. And I just find it so cool that this is what can happen, as you said. It brings communities together. It gets eyes on games that you didn't know about. And you want to be part of these legacies online that can last quite a span. And you are completely correct in saying there will definitely be a character in the next game, an NPC, who will look like this.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well that the developers sent this player a physical representation of their appreciation for what they've done. And you just see the opposite story so frequently of someone in the community doing something that maybe the developer doesn't want to happen necessarily. There's a view of this that this person's just cheesing everyone through to 100% completion of this game by getting them past the hardest boss, and that's not what they want. But that's not the developer's reaction to this. It's let's reward them for being an important part of the community, not shut down something interesting that the community is doing, which you see so often from other developers. And just for what? It's just shutting down good publicity and people who care about your game. So it's nice to see.
Totally.
Yeah, I love it.
And I did just want to point out, Narcotex mentions this in the chat, but I saw an article about this a couple of months ago. There's a Let Her Solo Me, where it's a player who gets summoned and they just walk into the arena and stand completely still and just get completely destroyed. And then who was it in chat? It's Jep said, I've seen a few people called Maybe I Can Solo ? And it's just amazing. And like that sort of stuff is just so much fun. Yeah. So yeah, that's a great story to start us off with. Yeah. It's a happy-go-lucky
one.
Everyone's feeling good about video games. And Pete, I think you might get that train's going to keep rolling.
Yes.
Yeah,
an interesting
We're all
story.
excited about this if it turns out to be good.
Yeah, for sure. Respawn are hiring for a single-player FPS set in the Apex Legends universe.
Reeps had a physical reaction.
Yeah. Well, I love Titanfall, but I'll continue on. Let you continue, Pete.
I also love Titanfall. My concern with this is that by calling it the Apex Legends universe, which in the past they've said they're the same universe, but obviously one is distinctly more colorful and crazy, and the other is Titanfall, that the Titanfall concept might fall by the wayside to some of the really cool and interesting characters from Apex Legends getting their own kind of single-player first-person shooter. I want to see that. I would love to see Titanfall 3. Respawn are consistently one of the most impressive developers over the last, it must be 10, 12 years now that they've just been on fire. Jedi Fallen Order, looking forward to that sequel. That's in the works still. What's it called? Jedi Survivor.
Survivor, yeah.
They've been making Apex, and Apex Mobile has just released and is kicking goals. So an Apex FPS that it has a campaign, I think is really interesting. And
excuse me, Peter, can you please use its full name, which at the moment is Apex Universe FPS Incubation Title?
AUFPSIT. Alpsit, as we call it in the biz. It could be a really, really everything about it is shaping up to be an interesting shooter experience with the pedigree of Respawn. But I am a little bit concerned that it means that Titanfall is on the back burner to the point of potentially just being forgotten about as an IP that EA aren't interested in developing.
There was a report a couple of months ago on GamesBeat from Jeff Grubb about this game being in development in some capacity, saying that it's built around mobility and style, but it isn't a Titanfall sequel. Reaps, do you want a Titanfall sequel, or are you happy with a game that has all the creativity and panache and fluidity of Titanfall without the name?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to say. A little from column A, a little from column B. We all know that Respawn make epic games. Like they're originally Infinity Ward, right? Well, the main people, and then they split off because they didn't want to do Call of Duty anymore, and they made Respawn, and they did Titanfall, which was, I think, their first kind of IP under the banner of Respawn. And I loved it. And then Titanfall 2 came out, and I was so excited for that. It was an amazing game. And now that it's been, I don't know how many years Titanfall 2 came out. It must have been 7 years ago, something like that. And people have been dying for a Titanfall 3. And I just know that the way that we're going is EA is not interested. They're interested in, obviously, these battle royales, these things that they can kind of farm for battle passes or loot boxes or whatever it is. And seeing as Apex Legends went so well into the BR arena, they're probably going to themselves, okay, if people love this BR and now we can get faith in the fact that people do like this IP, we may as well make a single player, or maybe single player campaign / I don't know, team death matches or something in this new IP that they're coming out with set in the Apex universe. I don't know how I feel about it because they always do make great games, but there's something in me that just wants to see a conclusion to Titanfall. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but you let me know.
So is there, because I don't play really much Apex at all. Do you play Apex, Reeves?
I have in the past, but I'm not a big BR player myself.
Right, okay. Because I think that the last time I played Titanfall 2 was when it came out. I loved it when it came out, but I don't remember it having a lot of personality in terms of the story and the characters and that sort of thing. It was these phenomenal levels.
Yeah.
It was incredible level design, so much fun to play. Like, the personality was the gameplay, I think. And so I feel like I would be relatively okay with a game coming from Respawn that isn't Titanfall, but has the guiding principles that made Titanfall 2 in particular so good. I guess the one thing that it would be missing is the idea that you're a pilot that can jump into a mech, and it's really been the only mech game that I've enjoyed playing because those mechs were so mobile and so much fun to get around in. But other than that, I'm kind of like, Titanfall did not leave an impression on me in terms of any characters where I'm like, I need to see how your story resolves or whatever. What?
BT?
Yeah, see, I don't remember it at all. Like, it maybe when I played it, I was really enjoying it, but it did not leave a mark on me where I'm like, oh, I remember this stuff. And so therefore I'm kind of like, I'm okay with them just coming up with something cool and new. But you know, they haven't really faltered since even the first Titanfall, which was a little weird as a multiplayer and anemic as a single player. Since then, it's just been banger after banger. So I have faith that whatever they put out will be fantastic as well.
Yeah.
Pete, you go ahead.
Yeah, I've played a little bit of Apex. I played a lot of it in that first kind of 6 months and dropped off, but have dabbled with it again in little like pieces throughout the seasons and seen new characters come in. And there's definitely in the way that all live service games are now, a little bit of story thrown in with each kind of season update. And here's a character and here's why they have an impact on what the map looks like now and whatever. So there's bones there. I don't know that there's any And there's some good there's some really strong characters. There's really strong characterization of individual heroes or champions or whatever they're called in this, in Apex.
Legends.
Sorry? They're called Legends? That makes sense because the game is called Apex Legends.
Yep.
Yeah, the Legends. Chat knows the Legends. So there's a lot of colorful storytelling to be done in that universe, I'm sure. And will I miss some X? Maybe not. Maybe I've come around. Maybe I'm like, yeah, fuck Titanfall 3. Give me Apex Legends, the story.
Yeah. Honestly, the best bit was the gunplay in Titanfall. Yeah. As much as I like being in a mech, it was really cool, but then it'll take forever to kind of shoot the other mechs and then be, ejected from your mech and all this stuff. And that was basically the whole kind of ideology around it, was who could get their mechs the fastest in multiplayer, because then once you did, you could just stomp the opposition. So maybe that now it's kind of on even keeling. It's kind of like, okay, it's all about gunplay now and movement and verticality. They're so big on verticality. So I'll be interested to see what they kind of do with an IP where they can expand a story and maybe make a different multiplayer that isn't a BR.
Yeah.
And they did, and like it's been rumored that it's about mobility and fluidity. That I'm like, that's what I want in first-person shooters. I want that feeling that you're basically Spider-Man with a gun. That would be sick. So it looks like this is going to be a whiles off, but we've got Jedi Fallen Order. No, Survivor, in the meantime, and then this could be the next thing coming out of Respawn. So keep an eye out for that. The next thing coming out of Ubisoft is not this, but it is pretty soon. I think the next thing is Mario vs. Rabbids. But then potentially this is the thing after that, because they finally showed off and gave us a release date for Skull and Bones. So Skull and Bones is the
pirate RPG sim.
Yeah, it turned into it got revealed with a great trailer in 2017. We saw some gameplay in 2018, and then it just went so quiet. And for years and years, it was like, what is happening with Skull and Bones? We don't know. Ubisoft finally came out. There have been some rumors over the last month that we were going to see it soon. They did a sort of 1-hour presentation about this game. It's coming out on November 8th, and it is... It's the most Ubisoft thing I can imagine, which is quite disappointing, because it's not that I don't like Ubisoft games. It's just that I went back after I watched the gameplay for this, which I should just say straight up, you sort of take command of a ship. Your ship is filled with crewmates that are NPCs and stuff. You wander around, you collect resources, you get in battles, you can do multiplayer. You're sort of living the life of a pirate, a la Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves, a couple of points of differences. One, obviously, the art style, but one of the big points is that Sea of Thieves is much more about
aesthetic progression,
finding an island, aesthetic progression, but also like finding an island, jumping off, digging up treasure, running around to islands. Like there is a land-based component to the game, which is not in this. This is purely boats until you get back to your like pirate hub, and then you can wander around a bit. So there's no sort of like going to an island and digging up treasure. You basically go to an island, point your ship at a tree, and harvest the wood from that tree. The tree just sort of disappears from the island, and all these planks appear on your boat. So that seems to be the big point of difference. And the idea is that you're living a pirate life and leveling up all the different like ships and weapons and all that stuff. When it first got announced, and after this, I went back and watched the initial announcement trailer. The announcement trailer, as is so often with Ubisoft trailers, phenomenal. Like, just the most cinematic, wonderful, like, there's this, like, this ship that gets attacked by pirates on both sides, and it like gets totally taken down, and it's all dramatic, and there's lots of slow-mo, and there's a sad woman singing, and it's just incredible. And then the pirate at the end, he takes the spyglass from the ship that he sunk and opens it up and looks, and he's like, and you see the ship that they scuttled in the background, just sort of bobbing in the water, just the mast, and then suddenly the mast rips down into the water, and they all turn around, and then bodies and barrels float to the top, and then on the other side of their ship, the ship that they sunk suddenly careens out of the water and like lifts up. And then it's like, they turn around, they're like, what the fuck? And then it's a top down shot and you just see their ship and the briefest shadow of like a fucking huge kraken underneath. And then it just cuts to titles. And it's fantastic. And then they showed the gameplay the next year. Oh, come on. I was pitching that. Thank you very much. And then the next year we saw the gameplay, and the gameplay was quite frenetic. It was a lot of sort of like, it was a multiplayer focused game then, and it really was like a first person shooter multiplayer style thing, but you're in a boat shooting everybody. And it looked fun. It looked like, okay, well, I hope there's more of a game around this, but it looks pretty frenetic and whatever. Cut to today. And unfortunately for me, I just feel like this game became just another version of all the Ubisoft things. There's so much that is about like just leveling up things, collecting resources. When you sort of like want to capture an area, there's this part where you just like go and put your ship in that part of the water until a progress bar fills up. It also has the thing that I think makes me drop off the Division, which is it feels like they're relentlessly chasing realism in their art style and their tone. And what it kind of means is that it just looks a bit boring to me. It doesn't have this draw where I'm like, oh God, I want to get in there, because like Sea of Thieves, looks phenomenal, is a lot of fun to play, but like you go in there and you're like, I want to get the fun pirate skeleton head, or I want to like dress up like this or get this sail or whatever. And none of that will fit in this world. This is a pretty straight pirate world, which means it's kind of a bit boring. There's not a progression loop that we could see so far for me that is tantalizing. It's kind of just like, yeah, this is what I guess if I had to imagine a sort of souped up version of what real pirates were like, this is probably it. Everyone's just a bit dirty, everyone's grumpy, and we're trying to make it as real as possible, but kind of cool. And that's what the Division was as well, where I was like, oh, I don't feel like hanging out in this world, because everyone memed about the beanies. But it's like, yeah, just because picking up another beanie is not particularly interesting. And if your main progression is like how you can personalize and become a pirate, and everything that I've seen so far, there is no differentiation between anybody. Everyone just looks like the same kind of Assassin's Creed style pirate person. Like looking at these outfits and stuff, they're all sick, like they're cool looking outfits, but it's kind of something where I'm like, yeah, once I've got one, I'll kind of just be happy with that for the rest of my game, probably. And so, yeah, there's just this feeling that the game went through so many iteration processes that it kind of just ended up taking the safe Ubisoft path, as opposed to something where Sea of Thieves was like, we have a vision and we're trying to execute on a vision. And this is not executing on a vision. It feels like, how can we just get this done? That's what it feels like to me. Reeps, have you watched this presentation?
I have not watched this presentation, no, but I think you've hit the nail on the head there. When it comes to Ubisoft, I played The Division when it first came out, and it was kind of like, cool, awesome, play with my friends. And then you started playing it and you just realize it's just a big grind. Like it's not fun to play. It's more like, go here, do this, come back, get reward type thing. Mm-hmm. And looking at the gameplay that I see on the screen, or rather the cinematics, it seems more of the same. And I think when it comes to like a pirate game, like a swashbuckling type of genre that it is, Sea of Thieves, I think, has hit a really good middle point there, where it's kind of like you can be full on sweats, you can really go for it, but it's also kind of playful and it's funny. You can just sail around. Well, I think if you play this game, if you just sail around, it's not going to do anything for you, where it's just like, oh, that looks pretty. And that's about it. And it's like, I got to go and do this grind. I got to, get as much, stocks as I can. I have to grow up with this person. We got to go to, I don't know, the Bermuda Triangle area where other ships can attack you. It all seems very formulaic. And especially with Ubisoft's recent thing with DLCs going on, I feel like people have kind of lost their trust a bit in what they're delivering. Because if you want to deliver this big old game where it seems like they would want to do add-ons, they'd want to do DLCs and everything like that to make it a more unique experience, I think they've lost some of that kind of trust that people may have had on them before. And you look at the graphics and it doesn't really wow me. Like I look at Sea of Thieves and I'm like, damn, those water physics look so cool. And here I'm just like, I don't know. It's just not for me.
I'm keen to play it because I'm hopeful that it has hooks that are interesting. The thing that Sea of Thieves doesn't have for me is a satisfying sense of progression. I always find it fun to be in there, and it's without doubt one of the most gorgeous games. Just the art style alone is so beautiful, and everything when it like comes together, and there's a sunset with birds flying over the water of a shipwreck on the horizon. It's just so picturesque. But I don't care about chasing the level 50 in the Merchant Guild and the all those guilds. Like it was tedium. There could be a more tangible sense of progression with this, in the sense that you upgrade a ship, you spec it out in the way that you find the most effective to your kind of style of play.
You might like unlocking skills and stuff as well, like perks, which at Sea of Thieves is like you don't get anything. I don't think you get anything additional than anybody else if you've played for 50 hours. It's not like
it's really just skins.
You're a more powerful
cosmetic
pirate. Yeah.
So there could be something satisfying in that. I do think it looks dated for sure, but I don't think it's ugly by any means. And I think if it all, like, again, if you kind of can find yourself, if it's a really smooth gameplay experience, then I think you could find yourself lost in it. I don't like the look of all this stuff, cutting trees down from the ship and stuff, but I did enjoy, as awful as this sounds, the whaling in Black Flag and Rogue. What was it called? Like, not Rogue Nation. I think it's just called Assassin's Creed Rogue.
Yeah, is that the portable one?
It was a standalone spin-off. You play an Irish guy, and it was like this. It was basically Black Flag 2. Or Black Flag Major DLC. Same characters, same era.
I have completely forgotten this game.
Yeah, well, it was a mini one. It was kind of like an off year one to just kind of give you Assassin's Creed, because you had to have Assassin's Creed every year at that time. And it was also good because it was the same mechanics as Black Flag, and it had a different skin, so it was just more of the same. The ship stuff in those Assassin's Creed games wasn't enough to make a game around. And I don't know that just adding a more robust progression system is going to make it feel like a fully featured game. I doubt it will. But it could be fun to spend some time in. I think it's just like, it's an awkward window because no one's particularly interested in it anymore. No one's expecting it to be any good. Maybe it'll pull across some of the Sea of Thieves crowd to check it out. And then God of War comes out 3 days later. And it's like, well, no one's going to... If people are saving up money for a game for that time period, leading into Christmas, they're not buying this over God of War.
No.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty rough period to launch.
Well, I think wasn't this this was one of the games that it's been developed in Singapore, and it's like they have a deal with the government of like, you will give us tax breaks or incentives or whatever to develop a game here, but it has to come out. And so it's like it had to come out, and I think it had to come out within a relatively close window to now. So it's like they're just sending it out there to fulfill the contractual obligation. Is some of the talk. The last thing I would just say, I do think it's all very hard. It sucks because I really do love pirates. I think everyone loves pirates. Everyone loves the idea of this. And Skull and Bones, Sea of Thieves is doing one thing, but this week we also got a reveal of there is a free Hitman 3 map coming out at the end of this month, like a brand new map, free to everyone who owns Hitman 3. Hitman 3, one of the best games of last year, and it is a pirate map. And it's modern day pirates, and you turn up on basically a pirate island, and it is like pirates, like sort of like modern shotguns, like they're sort of, it's a criminal island. But that had more of just like an idea behind it than everything that I saw in this. And I was like, oh God, and that's a free DLC map for a game that came out last year. So it is a bit sad. But I will definitely check this out because I want it to be good. I never want a game to fail. I guess I didn't have a lot of hope for it, but when But when it did get announced, I was like, well, okay, I guess this is, I don't know what else I was expecting. But as Pete alluded to, some things that we can expect, Sony finally confirmed the release date for God of War Ragnarok. It is coming on the 9th. So it is coming one day later. So it is literally, you get 24 hours of Skull and Bones, and then you're into Ragnarok, coming out for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. We're also getting a remake, apparently, of Suda51's cult zombie game, Lollipop Chainsaw, which I know some people liked. I certainly see a lot of Lollipop Chainsaw cosplays every time you go to like a PAX or something. So those people will be excited. It's coming out sometime next year. Platforms yet to be announced, that the original game arrived for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in 2012. And also Forspoken is going to remain unspoken for a little while longer because Square Enix's forthcoming action RPG for PlayStation 5 and PC has been delayed into 2023 as a strategic decision. It was supposed to come out in October this year. It'll now be the 24th of January next year, which for the first time, sorry, go Pete.
Just the press release on that was like, in conversations with our partners, Sony, we will be holding the release of this game that is very ready.
Yeah,
Sony have no games for February, so we will be out in February.
Well, but also, I think it's like it's that, and like we're gonna get fucked by God of War, like later on. So it's like just hold it. Put it out next year. Yeah. But like strategic decision, you don't often hear that. It's often like, we just need to polish it a bit more. And they were very much like, the game is done. You could be playing it now.
Yeah.
But because of strategy, next year.
This could be a Top Gun play. Top Gun was ready for 2 years before it hit cinemas. You know what? It's past $1 billion.
And I do not think that Top Gun would have done the money it has done now if it came out 2 years ago. We are craving something pure
the cruise
now.
Soar through the skies, see the world. That is Top Gun. Yeah.
So that is all the video game news you need to know that happened this week. There's literally nothing else you need to know.